Atlantis Vertigo. They announced it in August in the Metro West Convention Center under the pulsing of a revolving E on two screens on the outsides of a green argon laser. The city was going to rise to the top of the spire at the epicenter of the Emerald Field, near the intersection of Spadina and Front. Moments after the announcement, the club kids were moving through the crowd with the multicolored slicks, dated October 23rd. The 23s were significant. It was as if they had stepped out of the stars to me. December, the date I had started making money. October, the day I would get out. I had it in the back of my mind. It would be my last trip to eternity, and it would be fabulous. And there would be nothing to alter the course of events. It would be the end of a trilogy, the end of an era, the conclusion of a compacted year of absolute entrenchment and potential jeopardy. I called Burns and asked for a discount ticket on the day of the show. He put me on the guest list to the city in the clouds, a circular flywheel in space. I was hoping to see stormtroopers one last time before the rhythm ebbed and my heart would start to grow old. I was 19 and my affair with Canada was about to end. Canada was a blonde woman in black stretch pants. Her long curling hair was drifting away into Ontario. It had brushed my chest with sunglass vision more than once in an eternal sea of hot chocolate in the back seat of the Shadow behind Tim Hortons and in a roadside motel in Windsor on travels to Detroit. Canada was moving in with other people with herbal remedies for glaucomatic presidents whose armed forces moved quickly with Uzis and axes, while the frost drifted lower toward the edge of America. I met her in small apartments and watched her slowly siphon away my liquid assets, forgiving her wiles, knowing that at some point the copious entanglements would come to a conclusion. In any case, the tower was there for the climbing, and if there is a tower to climb, then there is a reason for climbing it, because it is there. October 23rd arrived, and the Gardner Expressway rushed by in the late afternoon. Minolta, EDS, Ford, and Scotiabank greeted me in their green bush form. I slid over the bump at 100 kilometers and noticed the presence of an emergency telephone. As the sidewalk to the right passed, and then it was there. Spadina exit. I passed the closed dome of the stadium, remembering the Blue Jays game. I had taken the Pleasure Dome barmaid to. Maybe 3 weeks earlier. We had watched them play Chicago and visited the Olive Garden along the Strip. She had told me she had a Marine boyfriend, and I'd ignored that fact and kept the conversation going. All the way back to the Rainbow Center, I parked in back of the Queen Street down past the Pizza at the intersection opposite Speaker's Corner, the place where I had danced on Much Music, broadcast to the northern world. It was a cool but comfortable evening. The lampposts began to cast glowing photons on the pavement, and I passed the intersection of John and Mercer, remembering the place that was there before it had changed to Oz, an industrialized nightclub that was called The Factory, where I took my friends and I met the Roses while dancing in a neon green lab coat, purchased from South Pacific Surplus before I graduated with honors. The Factory was the origin of rave in Toronto, when Ian spun Messiah and Apotheosis with the launch into bounce mode with Rotterdam termination source Boeing, back before he changed stations. Shepard twisted discs there and set the metropolis on fire. with his Techno-Trip compact discs, and nothing could stop Oz from being beautiful except for the winged monkeys who descended on the childlike munchkins who were only trying to follow the yellow brick road. I continued to wonder as I flowed into the soccer-garbed massive at the base of the citadel, who is the great and powerful Oz, and why does he project such a frightening specter? Could I rub my purple and green sneakers together and find my ticket back to Kansas? Or would I have to seek out Dorothy, the Crystal Princess, and ride on the heels of her ruby slippers, transforming from the Tin Man back into a simple farmer? There was no music at dusk, but there was a sharp green light guiding around the cylindrical structure, beckoning into the fog. After my contemplations and greetings to groove riders and strangers of all sorts, I signed the third page and was waved through security and stepped through the door. I had already found my purple window sky, and I was grinning, knowing that they would never discover what was in my spine. I was alone in the ebb of humans, more alone than I had ever been, ecstatic that there was no chain to hold me to Earth, ready to take the tour of the universe, a close substitute for the Millennium Falcon. I was to be the closest to the moon that I had ever been. The black Ray-Ban shielding my dilated pupils covered the fact that I would never fly, never pilot a shuttle like the one I commanded in 7th grade, the one I commanded into implosion and fiery death in Alabama. The speedball surface cleaner in 1988 had made certain that I would never pass an eye exam without lenses. The elevator stood before us as we anxiously waited. The boy in the orange fresh jive shirt with the long hair, and the girl with the twist-tied pigtails, sucking on the clear magenta pacifier attached to a whistle strap around her neck. The people in Adidas stripes and painter's caps, and shirts with the Atlantis logo stenciled in black on rainbow tie-dye. The soft electric sound of the bell sounded, and we climbed into an empty cell, standing in noiseless anticipation during the smooth, sensual voyage to the pinnacle of architectural wonder. When I was in 6th grade, I had been up there briefly, looking down and hoping to see from the observation desk the massive shopping center called Eaton on Young and Dundas, where I had shopped with Robin and Isaac and Casey and Shannon and Diet. I opened fortune cookies in Chinatown and bought sunglasses with straps and a Bryan Adams tape to listen to on my generic Walkman in the train on the way back to my side of Niagara Falls. What my eyes showed me when the door opened was entirely different from that time. It took my ears a fraction of a second to recognize the audio, but it was somehow different than what I had heard when I first had come home from Chicago. The track faced the shaman's voices through space between multi-dimensionally arranged speaker housings, and before I knew what I was up to, I had asked 3 people who was spinning. The answer had been Ian. I circled around the outside of the centered ring and found the tall, dark-haired DJ standing with one hand at a headset in his ear. The circles on the Mark II plates were slowing and quickening as his fingers manipulated the vinyl. I watched him slide the pitch bar up toward the +8 marker. He organized the flow into a white label, and when he was done, he turned and smiled. He knew that I had wanted to know what he'd been up to. He handed me the slipcover for the single, and I looked at the circuited design, wishing I knew where on earth he'd discovered it. I let the cover rest on his crate and walked into the crowd. People were dancing against virtual reality projected on the walls, in the gaps where the souvenir stands would have been on any given day. I tried to find space to let my arms fly and my feet shuffle, but I was beyond excitement, and the donut ring of the cement nail was becoming smaller as the elevators brought the teeming humanity into the sky. I decided to drop back to Earth and take the tour. The tour of the universe was a computer-generated flight through a quadrant of the galaxy that I had never seen before. Girders of space stations and planets and constellations whizzed past, burning jets of color into my perspiring retinas. The seat that I had strapped into tilted with the whole 30-member audience, and my blood poured into my feet while my head stumbled on visual sketches of android-controlled vessels. I was lost in the cosmos for 5 minutes in a physical man-machine interface, wishing that I could never stop coming to the end of gravity's rainbow. In the middle of it all, I remembered Tron and the Black Hole and Blade Runner and the Terminator, and had thought to pray that one of Gibson's novels would make it to film. I had a vision that I someday might try to put the whole kaleidoscope of Hallucinogen X into print, and it was quickly forgotten as the Falcon swiftly landed, and its razored talons gripped the earth, ripping up the ground and needling my tear-gassed brain like goodbye blue skies.